because we have wonderful friends and wonderful partners, the Jamaica Library Service and all their staff. Rampoon Radio, big up yourself. Miss Spice Island Lady, Miss G the Worm, and big up yourself. And we're having a wonderful time as well because there are people who have joined us every day for every activity. Miss Beryl, what a pleasure it is to see you. How do you do? I continue to get calls on my phone. People saying they missed it for one reason or another. Could I send the link? And when I do, they watch it and they're really having a good time. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, friends all, with all the ideas still bubbling about what we're going to do right after this festival finish, because we can't allow the momentum to die, I want you to know that some of our Caribbean friends have been getting big write-up in newspaper, clear up into the Bahamas. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, you have to join us tomorrow at 2 o'clock Jamaica time for the Grand Gala. This evening, we are going to be, excuse me, I've been talking all day. We are going to be presenting some highlights of the 2020 festival, but also some throwback. I think we have gone back as far as 2014. So you get an idea of the range of activities we do when we say we tell stories, run workshops, have conference talks, and then you will see some of the things we do when we chill out. Let me see if anybody else wants to say hello. And you want to say hello before we look at the rerun? Hello, right? Mr. Rampoon, you're walking up and down. You want to say hello? Yes, wonderful. Sean is out there Sean is about 45 miles or so away. Oh, he's at awake. He's at awake, he's watching. Tell all the spirits hello. Tell all the people good morning and sit down beside my Jesus. So we're happy that you're joining us in spirit with the spirit. Thank you very much, everybody. Post your comments so we can see what you have to say, any suggestions you want to make. And now we're going to invite Jodianne and Andre to just take it away. Thank you. Yes.
Come, Miss Clear, take the back of your head, my dear. This way, Miss Flo, evening breeze a blow.
Dr. Nina Blackwood-Mix, founder and director of Entukuma, the Storytelling Foundation of Jamaica, and the recent recipient of the National Award of a Badge of Honor for her contribution to nation building through storytelling. Members of the Entukuma team, storytellers both locally and international, members of staff the Jamaica Library Service, or online viewers, ladies and gentlemen, I extend a warm welcome to all of you on this the occasion of the Gala International opening of Ananse Soundsplash Festival 2020. First, let me congratulate Dr. Amina Blackwood Meeks for organizing the 2020 Ananse Soundsplash, appropriately themed Ananse website. The COVID-19 pandemic has restricted face-to-face group interaction, but thankfully, we're able to meet and share on virtual platforms in this new norm. The Jamaica Library Service is pleased to continue an excellent partnership with Entukuma Jamaica to host this 18th staging of this event. The JLS has been collaborating with Entukuma on this adventure since 2013. Libraries champion the stories which honor our past and draw parallels with the future. And so, our participation is well aligned with this festival. We thank the Entukuma Storytelling Foundation for continuing to highlight the importance of telling our stories as a means of preserving our heritage and the culture. For it is our culture that defines our identity as a nation, and so our stories must be preserved as important life lessons to be told across generations. I am reminded of the African proverb which says that when an old man dies, a library burns, aptly underscoring the critical importance of knowledge and experiential transfer. The principal objectives of this festival include raising the profile of the oral tradition as a vehicle for curriculum delivery and value-based recreational activity, as well as promoting opportunities for storytelling both locally and globally. Our public libraries, in their own way, contribute to the hosting and sharing of stories through our programs, such as the Little But We Tell Our, Parents Reading with Babies and Toddlers, Story Hour and Storytelling Clubs, our flagship program, the National Reading Competition, and of course the many workshops for writers and storytellers that are hosted. It is worthy of note that National Storytelling Day and Universal Children's Day are both observed on November 20th, and we are delighted to have children from various institutions and communities participate. Now that the events of the festival are virtual, we look forward to sharing with a wider audience, both local and international. We thank Dr. Meeks, all storytellers of the Foundation, and the international tellers for their significant contribution to this festival. I also want to acknowledge the work of the Jamaica Library Service team in coordinating the activities from the parish libraries island-wide. And so, as I close, I invite you to participate fully in the intriguing offerings over the next few days. I now turn you over to Amina and Sean, who will give you an overview of the festival. Thank you.
Who is coming next? Punchinella, little fell. Who is coming next? Punchinella, little fell. What can you do? Punchinella, little fell. What can you do? Punchinella, little fell. We can do it too. Punchinella, little fell. We can do it too. Punchinella, little fell. Who is coming next? Punchinella, little fell. Who is coming next? Punchinella, little fell.
Ananse lived in a village where there was famine and drought on the land. So he had to find a way to care for his family. But there was this lady who lived in the same village. Her name was Five. She didn't like it at all. Anybody who called her name, she would cast a spell on them and they would go to sleep for a year. Now, Ananse heard this, and you know how he likes to use his head. Him put on him glasses, you see, and him think about how him going to use him head on somebody. Now, him there and him thinking, how I going to find some food for my family? Him see Brother Rabbit come in, and Nancy gather up some pile of carrots and tie them up and fix them and sit on one pile. him see Brother Rabbit coming and him say, "Oh, Brother Rabbit, sir, come here, sir." Brother Rabbit come. If you can count how much pile of carrot I have right here, I'll give you one for your family. Brother Rabbit say, "Oh, that's easy, Brother Nancy, that's easy." And Brother Rabbit start to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Brother Rabbit, proper dirty, start sleep. And Nancy didn't even wait. And Nancy take up Brother Rabbit and carry him straight home, go give him wife to cook for dinner. Now they had feast for weeks. Them been a eat rabbit meat. No. Them a get hungry again. Time a run out. So Ananse started to think now, how am I going to feed my family again because food running out? What can I do now? So you see, Mrs. Cow. Now Mrs. Cow big, fat and juicy, you know. So I have to try find a way to get to Mrs. Cow. So he run go get some grass and pile them up and stack them up, man. And then he saw Mrs. Cow coming. And he said, "Mrs. Cow, if you would be kind enough to count how many piles of grass I have here, I would be glad to give you one." Now Mrs. Cow was so happy to hear all of this. She said, very well, Mr. Ananse. And she come now and she count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ha! Mrs. Cow drop a dirty. No one Nancy can't manage Mrs. Cow, you know, because Mrs. Cow very big. So Diana rope on Mrs. Cow neck, and he drag Mrs. Cow, and he drag Mrs. Cow till he reach a yard, and give it to him wife to cook. For weeks them eating beef. Them just eat, go so. No food I run out now, you know, after months of this feast, your food I run out. And Nancy now thinking, God, why how me going to feed my family for the next weeks? How? Then him thinking, he see Mrs. Chicken passing and him say, wonder if I could find a way to get Mrs. Chicken. No, Mrs. Chicken know about Ananse, you know. She know him love use him head. But she is aware, so she know when Ananse call Mrs. Chicken. Mrs. Chicken, after Nancy go pile up corn, you know, and him sit on one of the corn pile, and him call Mrs. Chicken, "Mrs. Chicken, would you be kind enough to come and count these piles of corn I have here? I'd be glad enough to give you one for your family." Mrs. Chicken, she stood well poised. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the one you're sitting on. And Nancy got upset. How dare you? That's not how you count. You are to do it right. Do it over now. So Mrs. Chicken said, okay. And she started to count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the one you're sitting on. And Nancy got upset. He got up from where he was sitting and said, how dare you? You are not supposed to count it like this. You are to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Huh? And Nancy dropped a dirty. And he slept for 1 whole year. Now, when he got up from his long sleep, he realized that he wasn't the only smart one. Mrs. Chicken outsmart him. Jack Mandora, me no choose no.
Recently, Great Spirit has been looking down on mankind. Great Spirit gets up every morning and he walks to the edge of heaven and he looks over. And what do you think Great Spirit sees? That we're stupid, that we're foolish, that we lack wisdom, that we listen to things when no go so. And so Great Spirit got himself a great big calabash. And in that calabash, Great Spirit decided he would put all the things that we need. A little science, a little technology, a little engineering, a little art, a little mathematics, and lots of stories. And he called Kweku Ananse. And he said, Ananse, I now proclaim you the wisdom curator. I want you to go down to earth and save my people from ignorance and all the false news proclamators. And Ananse took this calabash of wisdom and knew that he had been given a very special task to take care of a very special thing. And so he had to find a very special place to put it. And Ananse thought, I will put this calabash of wisdom into the most sacred tree I can find. So Ananse went walking around the world looking for a sacred tree. And when he came to America, he found the sequoia. It wasn't pleasing to him. So he went walking some more, and he went to South Africa and he found baobab. But he went walking some more, until he got to Oaxaca in Mexico. He didn't want to leave the calabash of wisdom there. So Ananse came right back home to Jamaica. And Ananse walked, Ananse see mango tree, breadfruit tree, all kind of tree. And Ananse found the blue mahou. And Ananse decided he would take the calabash of wisdom up into the blue mahou. And Ananse tied the calabash of wisdom round his waist and going up the tree. And the tree and the calabash beating up together and making some nice music. Me go down a river with me calabash. And the music so sweet and the sound carried far and wide. And all the people came up to see what I did. When they look up, them see Ananse trying to go up into the tree with the calabash of wisdom on him belly. Hear them. Ananse, what is that? Is a cup? Is a saucer? Is a drum? Is a magic thing? Ananse said, all of the above. And Great Spirit got it from Africa. And he gave it to me. And he says I am to put it in the tallest, most sacred tree. Hear somebody. And Ananse, why you have the calabash on your belly? Why you don't carry it on your back? So Ananse come out the tree and he put the calabash of wisdom on his back. And Ananse going up the tree, and somebody said, Ananse, why you don't put the calabash of wisdom on your shoulder? Ananse come back down up the tree. Ananse put the calabash on his shoulder. Ananse come. Ananse, put it in your elbow. Ananse, put it behind your knee. Ananse, under your neck. And everybody giving Ananse advice as to how to handle the calabash of wisdom, although previously they had none. And Ananse became so confused. The calabash fell and broke, and all the wisdom scattered. And Ananse stood up there not knowing what to do, and all the people gathered around not knowing what to do either. When all of a sudden, out of the wild bushes of Greece, a man come and said his name was Plato, and he knelt down and he picked up some of what had spilled out of Ananse's wisdom calabash. It was delicious. So he went and he told his friend, Mr. Aristotle, and Mr. Aristotle came and he had a similar tasting experience. It was wonderful. And the next thing you know, Hippocrates was coming along to taste some, and all of Pythagoras, all of their friends were coming. And all the people for whom Ananse had bought the calabash of wisdom just stood there as if they didn't know that this wisdom calabash was meant just for them, and that there was something inside of that calabash which only they could use to save the world. And so we go down the river, with the calabash. We looking at the water, looking at the water, with the calabash. No bother drop back, no drop back, no drop back, no drop back. The calabash.
We are so delighted to be part of this. We're happy to be with you, but we would really like to really be with you. You know, feel the warmth of the people, the warmth of the sun. Well, we're feeling warmth here. We're feeling the warmth of these lights that have transformed our little dining room into a storytelling stage. But we're flexible. We're all flexible, and we're delighted to be here in whatever way we can be with you. We are going to tell a story now, a story that I heard growing up from my dad. Barry heard it in different places, in Europe and other places. It's a world folk tale. It's a story that's from China, from Japan, from Eastern Europe, from my tradition. And it's a story that we both love. It's a story that kind of beats in our hearts all the time, but has been really prominent in our hearts and minds now, during this time when our country is going through so much tension and just in a world that is feeling so much challenge. And so it's a story that we feel compelled to share now. And to do that, we are going to bring in my little harp, and here we go.
A story about a monk. A monk who, for his entire life, had been searching and searching for the answer to one question. That question was, what exactly 100% without a doubt was the difference between heaven and hell? For his whole life, he'd been searching for this answer, and he'd done everything he could to find the answer. He'd read about it, he'd prayed about it, he'd meditated about it, he'd done everything. He'd talk to other monks and say, what do you think the difference is? And they'd say, well, I think it's blah, 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 blah. And then he'd say, all right, so when was the last time you were there so you can prove it to me? Because he didn't want to know about faith, he didn't want to know about belief, he wanted to know 100% without a doubt what was the difference. So for his whole life he'd been searching, for his whole life he'd never found it. Till finally one day he was sitting in his cell, his room in the monastery, his back was to the doorway, he was facing the wall. He was concentrating, just as he'd done for his entire life, on that question. What was the difference between heaven and hell? When all of a sudden, this now very old monk felt a presence behind him in the room.
And before turning around, he knew that the one who was there was no monk. But he was pretty surprised to discover who was there. It was an angel. And the angel gazed down upon him and said, for your whole life, you have been searching for the answer to one question. What is the difference between heaven and hell? Well, I've been sent here today to show you. And then the angel turned and left the monk's cell.
Well, the monk wasn't going to let this angel get away. This could be the one chance to find out. So the monk stood up and he ran out of his room into the hallway. But when he got out there, he found himself not in the hallway of the monastery, but instead he found himself at one end of a long, seemingly endless hallway that just disappeared off into the distance, and he could see that angel going further and further and further away from him down that hall.
Well, he wasn't going to let the angel get away from him. This was the chance of a lifetime. This was the goal of his lifetime, and so he followed that angel down that hallway. But as he walked, time stopped having meaning. He didn't know if minutes passed, if days passed, weeks, kind of like the wait people had to do in the United States for the results of the 2020 presidential election. It felt a little like that, but finally, he approached the end of the hallway. And the angel stopped there in front of two doors. One door had a sign on it that said, heaven. The other door had a sign on it that said, hell. And the angel said, let's take a look at hell first, and opened that door.
And when the door to hell opened, the first thing that the monk noticed was a smell. But it wasn't a bad smell like you're probably thinking right now. It was actually a fabulous, delicious smell of a stew cooking in a pot. You know what it's like when you're in your house and your favorite food is cooking? When we come down there, one of my things that I always have my nose looking for is rundown. That's my favorite. Just remember that next time we're there. But it doesn't matter what it is. See, and for the monk, that stew, just the smell of it swept over him. And he could think about nothing else but sinking his teeth into that stew.
And so he gazed around that room, and it was right in the middle of the room. There was a great cauldron. It was cooking over an open fire, and the stew was bubbling out over the top. And when the stew bubbled out, it would land in the fire all around. It made the stew smell all the more pungent. Oh, he needed to get that stew. He was overcome with this desire, and he was about to step into the room when he noticed all the people. I mean, there were wall-to-wall people. Everywhere there were people, one after another. And the thing was is that every single person in that room looked angry. Every single person in that room grimaced or scowled. Now, the monk couldn't understand. With such delicious food to eat, it made no sense. And then the monk saw why. He noticed that every single person in that room had metal bands around their elbows and long-handled spoons strapped to the end of their fingers, so that no matter how many times they dipped their spoons into the stew, they couldn't bend their arms and get the delicious stew into their very hungry mouths. And the angel said, now this is hell, and shut the door.
Then the angel opened the door to heaven, and when the door to heaven opened up, the first thing that the monk noticed was the same smell, the stew cooking in the pot. It swept over the monk, and once again, he could think about nothing else but sinking his teeth into that stew.
He looked around that room, and once again, he saw that same cauldron, or the same type anyway. It was cooking over an open fire, and the stew was bubbling out over the top. Smelled so good. And there were people in that room too. Wall-to-wall people everywhere he could see. And in this room, every person also had metal bands around their elbows and long-handled spoons strapped to the end of their fingers. Only in this room, every single person looked happy. Every single person in the room was smiling. And then the monk saw why. Because in this room, every single person there had learned to dip their spoons into the stew, turn and feed the delicious stew to one another. And the angel said, this is heaven, and shut the door.
Who is coming next? Punchinella, little fell. Who is coming next? Punchinella, little fell. What can you do, Punchinella, little fell? What can you do, Punchinella, little fell? We can do it too, Punchinella, little fell. We can do it too, Punchinella, little fell. Who is coming next? Punchinella, little fell. Who is coming next? Punchinella, little fell.
I am from Anova Parish Library. The title of my story is Ananse the Spider. Long ago in the deep rural forest lived some very proud animals. There was Giraffe, who proudly introduced himself as, I am Giraffe the tallest. Bear came up, well, I am Bear and I'm the heaviest. Tiger came up and said, well, I am Tiger. I'm the strongest and I'm the king of the forest. They looked around and they saw Ananse. They started laughing. But Ananse, who are you? You are the weakest in the forest. Ananse was not feeling good about it. He said, I am the weakest, but I am the cleverest and I'll show you. They started laughing. How can you show us that? How can you show us that, Ananse? Well, I am going to capture Snake. I am the cleverest. They laughed at Ananse more. So Ananse had a plan. The next day, Ananse went into the forest and he made a noose and he put some of Snake's favorite berries in the noose. Snake slid down from the tree and saw that those juicy berries. And he just quickly gathered them up and laughed at Ananse. Ananse was upset. So the next day, he made another noose and he put some luscious ripe banana in the noose. Snake looked down and eyed the luscious banana and he just got them. And Ananse was angry and evil. You snake! 2 days after, Ananse walked over to Snake's house with his walking stick. He knocked on the door. Snake looked. Are you here to capture me, Ananse? Think I don't know that you were trying to capture me all these days? Snake was very, well, almost surprised about Ananse coming. But Ananse was very determined to capture Snake. So he said, I am cleverer than you, Snake. I am cleverer than you. Snake laughed. You are not as clever as me. You are not. Ananse threw down his walking stick and said, I bet you're not longer than this. So Snake put himself beside Ananse's walking stick. He said, see, I'm longer than that by far. I'm the longest around here. So Ananse grabbed a piece of vine and tied Snake's tail to the walking stick. And he was there trying to get away, but by this time it was so tight around his tail. So Ananse dragged him and presented him to the other animals in the forest. And from that day, everybody respected Ananse because indeed Ananse was known as the cleverest in the forest. Jack and Dora, leave us shoes now.
My name is Kishina Black. I will be performing for you Ananse and Rata by Miss Louise Bennett Coverly from the Saint Anne Parish Library.
Once upon a time, Brother Rata was a very feisty and highfalutin fella. He used to dress up himself in the latest style and fashion and show off himself and gallop like say he did better than everybody else. So Ananse make up his mind to cut down Brother to the size. Ananse think up his brain how we go catch Brother Rata till we're rating. And then pops! And Ananse remember that Brother Rata loved dance until no one left. Every drum knock, Brother Rata they cut figure. The one thing Brother Rata could resist was music. So Ananse give out saying go have a big dance. And then invite Brother Rata to the ball. Ananse shine up in dance floor. Shine and slippery like glass. Ananse was the fiddler at the dance. And as soon as Brother stepped in the dance hall, as So Ananse start play a sweet tune from the fiddle and sing say, ying the ying the ying, ying the ying the ying, ying the ying the ying. Ying the ying the ying, ying the ying the ying, ying the ying the ying. Take care ya gatako, nine tala to ying the ying. Take care ya gatako, nine tala to ying the ying. Take care ya gatako, nine tala to ying the ying. When the music sweet, brother Rata, so him start wheel and turn and jump and prance and cut capos all over the dance floor in such a way that everybody stop dance to look for Rata jiggins and they start praise up brother Rata how him dance pretty and brother Rata dance with it better. And Nancy laughed to himself to see how him plan a work good. And so him sliding fiddle in another sweeter tune, sing say. Bandy witch, bandy witch, bandy witch. Bandy witch, bandy witch, bandy witch. Tumba henga, fa la 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 la, fa la 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 la. Tumba henga, fa la 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 la, fa la 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 la. Brother Rata cut figure and cut figure and cut figure. So till him slide on the shine floor and drop down and he chose his pop. Everybody was out and off of Rata. Knocks in, shame. So till he run going to walk home go eye. And from that day till today, Rata live in a hole. And it's a Nancy make it. Jack Mandora, me not choose none.
When I think about Ananse, I think of Ananse more than what people normally want to describe him as. I see Ananse more of one that takes on a cerebral process of analyzing and critiquing a situation, and as Anita says, to use it to his advantage. So I think of Ananse as a genius. I think of Ananse as being highly intelligent and not necessarily sweet boy. But I want to weigh into on the way that we look at gender in our stories, because I want to see gender as a fluidity in terms of dominance and power between men and women in our stories. So I don't just see power being ascribed to the male figures, but also to the female figures in the stories that we tell ourselves and our children.
You know, there was a time when anywhere you wanted to go, you had to travel through the forest because there were no roads. Yes. And there was a time when good had to conquer evil because the forest had things that you would have to encounter. And sometimes it's our friends, the animals, that really saved us. The story is about a seamstress. A seamstress is someone who can sew. This particular seamstress could sew just about anything, whether a hat, a shirt, a pants, anything you want she could sew. She had two daughters. One was called Miss Goody because she was always good. And the other was called Miss Baddy because she was always bad. Now the mother and the grandmother living in another district. And one Christmas, she sewed a wonderful dress and called Miss Goody to take it to her. But as you know, she had to go through the forest of the unknown. So the mommy sent the three dogs with her. Come belly bang, come belly bang bang, come belly bang me down. And the three girls and Miss Goody set out through the forest. Over stone, under bush, in the water, over stone. Bang! Out from that fearful head. Just the head. No neck, no shoulder, just the head. And the head said, "You're traveling." "Yes, I'm traveling." "You're traveling alone." "No." "Who are you?" "Me and three dogs." "Call them, let me hear." "Come belly bang, come belly bang bang, come belly bang me down." The head came, the dogs came, and the head disappeared. So it was safe for Miss Goody to go through now. and she got to where her grandmother lived. The grandma was so happy to see her and was really pleased with the dress. The grandma said, Miss Goody, I know you must be hungry, you know. I have some soup here. Come, take it and enjoy. Grandma, please give the dogs a soup, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here. And so the dogs lapped at the soup while Miss Goody sat and watched. Grandma said, Miss Goody, you're not going home tonight in that dark forest, you know. I don't want you to feel that, to see that head again. So guess what? You're going to sleep right here on the sofa. No, Grandma. Please let the dogs sleep on the sofa. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here. I'd sleep on the floor. And that's exactly what she did. Next morning, she set out again to go back home to the mommy. And of course, she had to encounter the head. And the dogs took care of that. And she got home to Mommy safe. Mommy was glad to see her. But then came Easter, and the seamstress sewed another dress for her mother. Well, this time, who did she call? Yes, Miss Buddy. Miss Buddy, come and take this dress to your grandma. No, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going. You are going. And I'm sending the 3 dogs with you through the forest. I don't want them down there. I don't want them. You are going with them. Well, want it or not, Miss Buddy and the 3 dogs set out through the forest. Over stone, under bush, in the water. Over stone, under bush, till bang! Out from the head. You're traveling? Yes, I am traveling. You're traveling alone? No, me and 3 fool dogs. Call and let me hear. Come belly bang, come belly bang, man. Come belly bang, with them. And the head disappeared. And Miss Goody was able to go through the forest and reach the grandma. Mama sent this dress for you. You don't have no food here. Girl, where is your manners? I said, I'm hungry, Grandma. I'm hungry. I want food. Well, Grandma brought the soup this time and said, I believe you're going to let the dogs get some of the soup. Grandma, I'm me hungry. Dog can't go, and if I have any bone, they will get it. Miss Goody lapped this bag, lapped up the soup, spit out the bones alone for the dogs. Well, when it was sleeping time, Grandma offered her the settee and said, Miss Buddy, I think you're going to make the dog sleep on this settee. Grandma, your dog must sleep outside. Outside! Ho! And she shut the dogs out in the cold and slept like on the settee. Well, next morning, she was on her way home through the forest. Over stone, on the bush, in the water. Over stone, on the bush, till bang, 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 bang. 4 rolling calves, breathing fire, long teeth, coming closer to her. You're traveling. Yes, I'm traveling. You're traveling alone. No, me and 3 wonderful dogs. Call them, let me hear. Come belly bang, come belly bang bang, come belly bang me now. Come belly bang, come belly bang bang, come belly bang me now. No dogs, and the rolling cars are closer to her. Closer. Ah! One took her head, one took her feet, and the other 2 took the sides and dragged them in the bushes. Well, by this time the dogs got home, and the seamstress realized something was wrong. Miss Goody, come, we're going to the forest. Something's wrong with your sister. So the seamstress and Miss Goody, along with the 3 dogs, went through the forest, over stone, on the bush, in the water, over stone, till bang! Out jumped a head. And the head said, no, the head said, Mommy, Miss Goody, help me. I promise if you help me, I'll be a wonderful girl. Well, the head was there, and the seamstress called the dogs. Come belly bang, man, come belly bang with them. And she sent them east and west and north for the other parts of the body. And she took them all together and took them home. I said she was a what? seamstress. And she could do what? Sew anything. And so she went to work. And she sewed. And she sewed. And she sewed. And she sewed. And she sewed until Miss Patty was back together again. And as soon as she was back together, she said, Mommy, Mommy, I love you, Miss Goody, I love you. Mommy, Mommy, from now, we are going to see something. You have two daughters. One is Miss Goody, and the other will be Miss Goody, Goody too. From that day, she was no more a bad girl. She was all good. I hope you all will be good. See you.
You believe in duppies? Not that kind of duppy. I talking about the kind of duppy that calls your name. When you know you're the only one in that room. What about the duppy when you're sitting on the sofa reading your book in peace that comes and sits right next to you? And you know it's there because of the strong smell of perfume. Or that duppy that makes you run just a little bit faster. When you take that footpath home, you know that shortcut in the pitch blackness, you know that duppy? The one you can feel inching closer to you? Or maybe you've seen a duppy, one that is a big glob of black nothingness in the middle of the road that has a strong magnetic pull that sucks you straight through it. You ever had that experience with a duppy? Oh, I could tell you about duppies. But maybe you need to know about the kind of duppy that you invite home. Yeah, the duppy that you call to you. Innocently. A long time ago in Kimanbrak, on the north side of the island, there was a mother and a son who lived in a small cottage. Daddy had gone off to sea, so it was just the two of them. A little boy named Hecke was like any other boy. He loved to go fishing. He loved to make things with his hands. One day in particular, he came home with a beautiful guava wood gig. You see, he had been collecting guava wood from around the cottage. And he was able to carve out this most beautiful present for his mother. As he presented it to her, he said, "We have to try it out, Mommy, we have to try it out." She was busy preparing his favorite meal, steamed fish with stew breadfruit, and she had already made a sweet cassava stretcher. That night was a special night, you see. They had not long moved to this cottage, because Hecke had grown big enough to deserve his own room and his own bed. As they started to spin in the gig, they laughed. There was a lot of joy that filled that house. Hecke spun and spun and spun that gig round and round through every room in the house. The gig seemed to take on a life of its own, spinning to and fro and back and forth and in and out and under the bed. Hecke was truly impressed, as was his mother. This was a very special gig. They cleaned up quickly, put the gig down, and had a wonderful dinner together. Hecke thought, "I just want to spin her a couple more times before bed." And he went ahead to do that. As he wrapped her up and let her go, the gig just seemed to sing and spin around. It almost seemed as though he had a friend in the gig. The gig knew exactly which way to go and how fast to spin and just how to slow down right next to him, as if to say, "Spin me again." But then it was time for bed. And Heke went to his room after cleaning up, knelt down and said his usual prayers for a good mind a season, to catch that old pompous Jack, boy he fast, and for me to find some more real good guava wood, because I gotta make some more gigs. He almost said amen, but then he remembered Mama always said to thank the Lord for something. And I thank the Lord for Mama, and I want to keep Daddy safe to bring him home soon. Amen. Into the bed he went, the little kiss on his head from his mother, and he wrapped up in his quilt. Heck, it was just between wake and sleep when the room filled with a glow, and all he could think was, boy, the moon must be shining bright tonight. But it soon became apparent that that wasn't the case. You see, a tall, dark, slender figure just came right through his door. That's right, right through the door, which was closed. And soon this tall, dark figure turned into the shape of a man, a tall man with straight dark hair and a long nose and thin lips and big ears and long, long, long old arms and long, long old fingers that just seemed to reach towards Heck. And Heck, his eyes blazed open like this, and he thought, this is a nightmare. This can't be real. And when he saw those long figures reaching towards him, he screamed out, Mommy! But those fingers kept reaching until they almost touched his precious guava gig sitting on the night table. But his mother, who immediately felt something in her spirit change, dropped the dishes she was washing, clink, and ran straight towards the room, boom, 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 till she reached the room door, and but as she opened that door, that tall, slender, dark man floated straight through the other door on the other side of the room, which led directly to the outside. What is it, son? A man was in my room, Heke said, trembling. He looked back at the guava wood gig and picked it up quickly and put it under his pillow. His mother went to the other door, tried to open it, but it was locked. Then her eyes opened, and she realized what had happened. She unlocked the door, opened it, and looked outside. But it was a serene night. She shut the door back, and she lay in bed with Heke. They moved from this house a few years later, and many, many moons after that, Heke overheard fishermen down along the rocks talking about the haunted cottage on the north side of the island, and he knew instantaneously it was the home he had spent some time in. They spoke of a man who lived in the house who met an untimely death. Cause of death? Guava gig. Apparently he had slipped on one and fell. Never recovered. Apparently he and his son collected a lot of guava wood in their time, and they carved them, and they sold them, and they even gave some away. And it became clear to Heke what had happened that night, the night he spun and spun and spun his gig. What do you have in your house? Just waiting on an invitation. Da peace, and us living side by side. Da peace, and us living side by side.
In partnership with Dr. Amina Blackwood Meeks and the Storytelling Foundation of Jamaica,
The Jamaica Library Service established storytelling clubs in libraries island-wide last year. This is in an effort to train and revitalize the art form of storytelling, among other objectives. The programs within the clubs fully support the themes and concepts of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information National Standards Curriculum. We therefore encourage everyone to join the public library and become a member of the Storytelling Club. So by next year, we anticipate the growth of the clubs and more participation from members on Storytelling Day. Earlier today, if you had joined us, and if you had not, we remind you, we hosted the launch of a children's book titled That's a Good Idea, written by Dr. Amina Blackwood Meeks herself. And I encourage you all to get a copy to read, coming soon at your library or from a major bookstore in Kingston. We also invite you to join us this evening at 6 p.m. for a radio show called Ananse on the Airwaves on Fit 97 FM with host Beverly Edwards. In closing, we thank all our partners, the Storytelling Foundation of Jamaica, led by Dr. Meeks, the Ministry of Education, and all the Jamaica Library Service team members island-wide contributing to this event. Please ensure you like the Jamaica Library Service Facebook page right now, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and get notifications for live shows. Head come before book.
The Trelawney Parish Library's Member of the Parish project was launched on Thursday, the 18th of November 2010. The objectives of the project was collecting and preserving historical information on people, buildings, and social practices and monuments, as well as collecting artifacts and other noteworthy objects and writing. Visit us online or at the Parish Library as we continue to explore the history of Trelawney through the Memory of the Parish project.
It's like a mirror reflecting what you do. And if you are smiling, it smiles back at you. So do unto others as you would have them do. So your days may be many longer. Most high. Oh yes, I know. I am the voice of the Most High. Chant Rasta village girl, Rasta village, man rolling walk, Robert, Johnson. I don't need nobody to give me nothing. Just open up the door. I'll get it myself. I don't need nobody to give me nothing. Just open up the door. I'll get it myself. I said, what? I don't need nobody to give me nothing.
It's the infamous Diane Sherlock.
Yeah.
Will from the UK playing his beautiful violin.
Yard is yard in nights as
Who is coming next? Punchinella, little fell. Who is coming next? Punchinella, little fell. What can you do, Punchinella, little fell? What can you do, Punchinella, little fell? We can do it too, Punchinella, little fell. We can do it too, Punchinella, little fell. Who is coming next? Punchinella, little fell.
Mapping meanings of the body voice, sails and waters in the space of land ships, because land ships dance. They use their bodies to tell the story. And the first image I want to show you is this beautiful image by a very young man. It took me 20 years to figure out what he did here. I.e., I took 20 years to reach this point. This artist found it immediately. This is his version. He was only 24 years old when he did this. This is his version of a land ship. Notice that the ship is made of souls. So these are spirits upon spirits upon spirits. Notice that the ship is dancing on the ship. So the individuals of the ship, known as land ships companies, are dancing on the ship. They're led by a sailing master or a dancing master. And this is a modern version. So you are also looking at International Men's Day. Traditionally, land ships were all men. I really mean men. 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old men. In the contemporary, especially the 21st century, there has been a recruitment of girls. So now we have the girls as the nurses, and notice the hats on the nursing hats, but the leader of the ship is still male. He did this, and I was blown away because 20 years of reading documents in the British archives and talking to the elders, I had just reached that point that there are meanings to landship that are spiritual, but we in Barbados, we still have to unfold them, and he did this.
Greetings, everyone. I am Sean Thomas. I'm representing the Jamaica Library Service on this International Men's Day. So I want to take the time out to big up all the men. It is still International Men's Day, and I'm representing for all the men everywhere, and particularly in the Jamaica Library Service. So even though the face of this presentation, you aren't seeing a lot of males, a lot of them are in the background. So I want to send a shout out to Mr. Laws, who is assisting technically right here. Mr. Laws, Mr. Hall, Mr. Gilman, Mr. Stevens, and Mr. Burke. You know, here how many misters? So even though you don't see them on screen, they are very much a part of pulling this event together. So thank you, Dr. Meeks, for allowing me the opportunity to share my story, because it's still a storytelling festival, you know. So my story is essentially, and I will make it a short story, and I will draw on a comment that Dr. Burrows made earlier in the chat. And specifically, she mentioned the power of the voice. So that underscores my story. So when I was young, I used to spend holidays with my grandfather in Kingston, but he's from the country. So when I was in the country, you know, at that time, dopey stories were a thing. Cell phones never come in yet, that sort of thing. So there were a lot of dopey stories. And then there was this particular character in the dopey stories that they used to, it used to be a mystical and a mythical character. And this character was Mother Pretty, that they say was a witch who used to ride across the river in the night on a 3-foot horse. So I used to get scared and participate as a youngster in these stories. But when I visited my grandfather in Kingston now, my grandfather was one, he was, I would say, semi-literate, but on the lower end, all right? So he did a lot of storytelling. Everything that he said to us, he put it in a story form. So here's what I used to do now as a youngster, and not applying that importance to it. I used to, while he was talking, I used to interject with yes and okay and so on and all right. And he would think I was actively listening. I was hearing. And then guess another thing is that he was blind. My grandfather was blind. Well, he went blind. I knew him when his sight was going, and then subsequently he went blind. So most of what he shared with me was when he was blind. But here's the thing now. I realized that if he was talking and you leave out of the room, even though him can't see him, no. If you're there to him left, him no. If you're there to him right, him no. So you can't trick him. So I used to try a little, when I was getting distracted, I'm on holidays and watching TV and so on, getting distracted, want to go outside and play and so on. But he wanted to share these stories, and it's now in my adulthood I realized that it was very important. He saw it as a very important thing for him to share these stories and for him to have an audience in the family to share it with. So because I couldn't get away from him now, I had to be there. And even though I was trying to evade him by just interjecting yes and okay and all right, me here, man, and so on, I had to hear because it was the voice. So he was saying things that I didn't register immediately, but growing up now, coming into adulthood, I have to start reflecting on everything. And one of the key things that I found out is that he used to talk about the character that I used to listen to as a child in the dopey stories that them called Mother Pretty. I realized that my grandfather used to say that was his grandmother. Yes, I remember a couple stories where my grandfather said Mother Pretty was his grandmother. So when I checked it out now, I realized that this great, wonderful, dopey story that everybody in the community used to feed off and connect to other stories, connecting to our ancestors. It was directly connected to me. And in addition to that, through his stories, going back to understanding understanding gender in Caribbean folklore, in telling his stories, because my grandfather, he never writes, because as I said, he was not really literate. So most of what him say, him talk. And there is so much I can draw now from what my grandfather said that I was telling Dr. Mix that I could write a book. So you see how significant that is. And within those stories, a lot of other things came out because in growing up now and facing reality, taking on certain amount of responsibility as an adult, I realized that you see this thing that my grandfather did say, it was a serious thing. This other thing when he did say, this is what I understand now, it applied to financial literacy, this applied to ethics, this applied to morality, so that is the nature of the story.
Mr. Liam Logan, I don't think I often get an opportunity to sit with a champion, and you are the champion reader for Kingston of the Jamaica Library Service Reading Competition. May I offer you my heartiest congratulations.
Thank you.
And to thank you for agreeing to read from my book. What did you think of the book, by the way?
It was very well written, especially for the fact that it's a story in a story.
Thank you very much. Could you read your favorite parts of the book for me now?
Sure. Excerpt from the book, That's a Good Idea, by Amina Blackwood Meeks. The mention of mongoose made Johnny laugh. I know mongoose, he said. That's the animal that chases rats out of the cane field. It's always running across the road without even looking, and most of the time it's alone. Except when it is carrying bedward sticking in its mouth, and to prove how much he knew, Johnny broke out into song. Grandpa nodded, joined in the chorus, and then continued his story. Well, without a chicken, Mongoose looked so lonely because he was always alone. That is why Great Spirit decided to allow Mongoose to make one last animal, so he could have a friend, just to keep him company. And Mongoose said, Johnny jumps right in. That's a good idea. According to Grandpa, Great Spirit said to Mongoose, "Tell you what, take this piece of muddling clay and make me model what you think the last animal on earth should look like. It's time I had a rest." Then Mongoose had a brilliant idea. The words tumbled out of his mouth faster than his mind could figure out what he was really saying. With all these models, Great Spirit, one day you and I can launch a special line of garments and have the greatest fashion show in the world. We could discover the next supermodel. Oh, I can see it now. Paparazzi, lights, camera, action! Tourists will come from everywhere. Oh, Great Spirit, how about a beauty contest? We could dress up all the animals in the most amusing outfits and ask them some tough questions. Now, how would we decide who would be the winner? We could play Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. Great Spirit roared and cut him off right there. Mongoose, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
You are a brilliant reader.
Thank you, Auntie Amina.
I can see why you are the champion. May I ask you a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Do you know what a mongoose bread is?
No, Auntie Amina, I've never heard of it.
What do you imagine it is?
A long piece of bread?
You are almost there. And in a little while, we're going to be eating some mongoose bread. But first, I have a surprise for you. Would you like to stand with me? I want everybody to have a look at this. This is a poster that comes with the book. And I am going to give you your specially autographed copy of this poster. And guess what? The first 20 people to purchase, it's yours, you can take it. Just take it. The first 20 people to purchase the book after this will get an autographed copy of this poster. But you will be first. So they will be the 21st. How about that?
Sure.
That's a good idea. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome, Auntie Amina.
I would like to thank you guys because the stories that you told us showed me that not only Jamaica has double stories, which is very fantastic.
I like all of your stories that you told, but I especially like the story about the little boy who his uncle went through so much trouble just to find him a comfortable bed to sleep in.
I would like to thank you for sharing us your wonderful stories. I especially like the one with the baby and his dead mother was in the casket. It shows that our mother's love is strong. It doesn't even affect if you are beyond the grave.
Thank you for your wonderful stories that you told us on Wednesday. They were very interesting and I loved all of them.
The stories were very interesting and I loved them. I would like to thank you on behalf of First Form and all of Boomer's Boys School for taking the time out of your busy days to come and speak to us. And one very interesting thing I learned is, as my peer had said before, Jamaica is not the only country with double stories.
Hello Jamaica, hello Mexico, Panama, and the rest of the world. I'm very happy to be here today. The first time that I saw Amina Blackwood mix with Ananse stories was in 2016 at
International Storytelling Festival in Edinburgh, Scotland. I remember that in a meeting, I approached to Amina Blackwood, and I don't know why, really, I don't know why we have a special connection this afternoon. We talk and talk and talk. So 2 days later, when I saw this woman on a stage with a storytelling show of Ananse stories, I can't believe it. Oh my God, it was a great experience because the stories of Jamaica, its roots, its custom, I feel all over my skin and inside me in the voice of Amina. I told myself, oh my God, this woman needs to go to Mexico. And 1 year later, we invite Amina to our festival at Palacio de Bellas Artes in Mexico City. The people love her. The people love Jamaica through the Ananse stories. Was an incredible experience. 1 year later, I go to Soundsplash Storytelling Festival in Jamaica, and I enjoy it. Really was a great experience with the children, with the public, at the libraries. I enjoy the Jamaican food, it's great. I enjoy the beauty of the islands, but above all, I enjoy the smile and the kindness of the Jamaican people. Thank you for this experience. And today, I'll tell you one of my favorite stories, a little insect, a fun story that I tell in many parts of the world. This is the story of Clorinda. And you may ask, who is Clorinda? Clorinda was nothing more and nothing less than a pretty little Anne born in Vienna. Yes, Clorinda was the daughter of the great ambassador of Panama in Austria, and Clorinda, the pretty little Anne, loved to dance. But Clorinda had a big problem, that in those high society parties in Vienna, they only dance waltz. And Clorinda, the pretty little Anne, couldn't stand that. Tra-la-la, la-la, 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 tra-la-la-la-la. She couldn't take it and couldn't stand it. Clorinda's blood boiled from head to toe because what she wanted is to move around, to shake, to dance salsa, merengue, guaguancó, or reggaeton, and not those old wild songs. One morning, a magazine arrived at Clorinda's hands, a magazine with pictures of the Caribbean. And Clorinda, the pretty little Anne, the moment she saw those pictures, said, "Oh, I want to go there now." That same day, during the afternoon, there was a big storm. And when it ceased, Clorinda, the pretty little Anne, went out to her backyard, and there, on a raindrop, she saw her reflection and said, "Oh, what a beautiful I am! How gorgeous I look! How stunning I am! I even have a wife's waist. I don't even look like an Anne." Immediately, Clorinda, the pretty little Anne, took a pink geranium's petals and fixed herself a short skirt. With a saffron twig, she made a headdress, and with a petit pois cut in half, she made herself a bra. She looked wonderful. Very happily, Clorinda walked the street of Vienna, from here to there and all around, when all of a sudden, another storm hit. And Clorinda, with nothing else to do, went and hid under the tree. There, all lonely and sad, watching the raindrops falling down, she started to sing. Lindo capullo de alelí, turururu, si tú supieras mi dolor, ay, 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 ay. When suddenly, Clorinda, the pretty little Anne, witnessed a watery stream carrying a paper boat. It was headed straight for Clorinda, who didn't think twice before jumping right on. The boat went into a sea, and into a river, and into the sea, and from the sea to the ocean, yes, and in less 2 weeks, Clorinda was sailing in the Atlantic Ocean, ladies and gentlemen. 6 days later, she may land in Panamanian coast. Yes, and she hadn't even walked a 100 meters when Clorinda, the pretty little Anne, heard the sounds of the drums and flutes and began dancing. Panameño, panameño, ay, panameño, vida mía, yo quiero que tú me lleves. She walked a little more and arrived at Ann Hill Bar. She entered, beautiful. She sat at bar and ordered a daiquiri. And while she enjoyed her delicious cocktail, she turned around and saw him. A beautiful Panamanian black flea that Clorinda, the pretty little Anne, when saw him, say, what a beautiful black flea. What a beautiful puppy. I want him to my boyfriend. When the Panamanian black flea noticed Clorinda, the pretty little Anne, moving her hips that way, his jaw dropped to the ground, ladies and gentlemen. And since then, Clorinda, the pretty little Anne, and the black Panamanian flea fell in love and lived happily forever.
His Excellency Sir Patrick Allen, Governor General of Jamaica, read a proclamation at King's House declaring November 20, today, National Storytelling Day in Jamaica.
I thought this man was dead. No, man! I am the face of the waves, all and grey as the sea, with eyes deep and black.
If we know the stories of our ancestors, it connects us to our past.
So Ananse Soundsplash brings context. It brings meaning to aspects of our culture that have gone unrecognized for so long, or that have been lost in the, well, let's say, the dark pages of history.
Then send the G's, do not time to find alright, say your grace, give thanks and praise to the most high who create the earth and the land and the sky. Give your confidence, confidence, wide, so we can plan and feed.
A festival like Ananse Soundsplash gives us an opportunity to share across, as African descendants, some of the stories, to reclaim some of the past that was lost.
My hope for the future of Ananse Soundsplash is a simple, straightforward plea that this is allowed to more oxygen, it's allowed to grow.
In this land of wood and water, nobody must stop, everybody get brought up. Teach the techniques to your son and your daughter so they can prosper. Watch the money run.
The importance of a festival like Ananse Soundsplash firstly is the word Ananse, because this is our trickster character in African stories, West Africa, and in Southern Africa we have rabbit, the hare, And these are the characters that helped us through difficult times during apartheid, during colonization, and we didn't have voices, but we put our voices in these characters. So there's no way we can forget about them now that we emancipated, we're free.
They try to keep us down, scatter us all around to diverse parts of the earth, hoping we'd waste away. But no matter what they do, no matter what they say, all I got to children go Harambe, Harambe. Hear what I say? Harambe, Harambe. What color is the rainbow? Check it next time it shows. It's the way we should be, all together in harmony. We're sailing in the same boat, we're rocking up the same stream. So no matter what they do, no matter what they say, all our Jaja children are going Harambe, Harambe. Hear what I say? Harambe. Hear what I say? Harambe. Can a leopard change its spots? Jaja children, their skin. But say blood thicker than water. Love will take us further. So don't you feel no way? 'Cause I saw Jaja say, and no matter what they do, no matter what they say, all our Jaja children are going Harambe, Harambe. Hear what I say? Harambe, Harambe.
People, really fabulous, and tomorrow will be the icing on the cake, or the whole cake, we don't know. But tell all your friends, we start at 2 o'clock Jamaica time. Look at all our Facebook pages to see what time it will be in your part of the world. Give thanks to Rampoon Radio. I'm sure they will be telling us what the various times are. Speak to Anne, come to my Facebook page, Jean's Facebook page, everybody's Facebook page. Go to the library, Facebook and YouTube pages. You will see what you have missed, but you will also see the information for tomorrow. I'm looking forward. This has been great. Thanks, everybody. Adrian, you and your team are awesome. Thank you, Jody Ann.